Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here, welcome back to Gents. Hope that you're doing well. It is no secret that cologne fragrances have exploded in popularity over the last few years. But it's not always been that way. Actually, when cologne fragrances first started off, there were a bunch of them that came out and were garbage. Yeah, they were just awful. But then something happened. Cologne fragrances came out that were hype-worthy, and that really kicked everything into a higher gear. And today I'm sharing with you guys what I think are 15 of the biggest hype-getting cologne fragrances ever. So these are the ones that had everybody rushing to place their order to grab them as soon as possible. All of these are gonna be linked in the description below. Feel free to check them out down there. Let's get started with Lattafa from Rasasi. I can remember when this one very first started getting talked about. It really caught on quick, and it was interesting because Lattafa was not really cheap. There are a lot of cologne fragrances that get hyped because they're a very, very affordable alternative to a much more expensive scent. And while Lattafa is cheaper than the fragrance that it's cloning, it's not like this was a $20 fragrance. And it's still not super cheap. I mean, it's around $50, $55 at most discounters, so a little bit on the higher end as far as clones go. But the reason this caught on in such a huge way is because this was one of the first clones that did an absolutely amazing job of emulating something that was really popular and really expensive. And this is one of those cologne fragrances where you don't have to guess, you just spray it on, you go in for a whiff, and you know immediately what it is. This is Tuscan Leather from Tom Ford. Now my bottle isn't pristine. When I first got this one, pulled it out of the box, actually, the little leaf on the front had been rubbed off a little bit. But, you know, that's fine, I guess. And Lattafa is such an amazing alternative to Tuscan Leather. What makes it even more amazing is when this came out. This came out in 2012. And in 2012, most clones or inspired by fragrances were hot trash. I mean, legitimately awful. And then this one came out like a phoenix. It was just like, what is that? The raspberry, the leather, all the aspects that you love from Tuscan Leather are here. So this one was hyped and it deserved it. And people overlooked that higher price point for a clone because of how good it was and still is. Before we move on to the next fragrance, guys, here are some codes that you can use. Use these to save money across all these different fragrance websites. Also, for fragflex.com, GS11 only works on the first order that you place. After that, GS10 will work unlimited times. That's $10 off any order over 99 bucks. Same thing with the perfume box. That code works on your first order. Next up, we have Nitro Red from Dumont. Now this one you may look at and be like, Nitro Red, I mean, it's kind of a newer one. You know, what's up with that? Well, it has gotten a big groundswell of hype behind it. It's a fragrance that smells like you took bits from Invictus and bits from BR540 and said, kiss. Really affordable from discounters, so it's not gonna cost you all that much money. Super versatile, big compliment puller. All those things put together means people like it. And it is so popular and has caught on so quickly that there are other clone houses that have cloned this one. I've talked about that a few times, but that just lets you know how serious it got real quick with this. Because I can guarantee you that clone fragrances are not looking at what another clone house does and going, ah, man, everyone hates that. That is not selling at all. Let's clone that. Yeah, that's like how much they're failing. I want to fail that hard, so let me do that. Nah, that didn't happen. What happened was they went, oh my God, do you see how much they're selling of that? Can we just do the same thing? Like literally the exact same thing, same bottle and everything? Let's do that. So Nitro Red, this stuff has been crushing. And I think that Dumont, the house that made this one, they came out with Nitro White, which I don't have yet as of when I'm shooting this video, but I've heard that it's like Nitro Red, but tweaked, which lets you know everything. Like they know what they got. We gonna ride this cat, boys. I've actually heard Nitro White might even be better. So we'll see. But that stuff, absolutely compliment monster. Cheap, versatile, all the stuff. All right, man, there's a bunch of them in here. Let's go Armaf next, but not the one you're thinking of. This one is Craze. Armaf Craze. Yeah, this is another one where people just went wild for it. It's a clone of Pegasus from Parfums de Marly. And the presentation on this one, definitely not as nice as most cologne fragrances nowadays. I know. I just said cologne fragrances and nice presentations in the same breath, and some of you were like, But this is from like, I don't know, BC Armagh. This is like their prehistoric time, and it's not great. I mean, it's not. Yeah, this little collar piece on my bottle snapped off like as soon as I got it. Basically, I took the cap off and this just came off with it. And look at that. Beautiful. But this is very affordable, and it is a very, very good alternative to Pegasus. To this day, one of the absolute best alternatives to that scent, which is really saying something because, again, when Crave came out, most clones were not really that nice, which is one of the reasons that this one took off in such a big way. Gotta talk this, if we're gonna talk hype, Detour Noir from Al Haramain. This one is a clone of Parfums de Marly Leighton. Really well done, not very expensive. Presentation looks a little iffy, and the lettering on the front of mine has just fallen away. So mine now says, Abra. No. Yeah, that's all that's left. So yeah, that's not great. But as far as alternatives to Leighton, that's a really, really good one. And as far as bang for your buck goes, one of the absolute best on the market still today. I do think that the new Detour Noir Exclusive is overall a bit better, which is this one right here. It looks a little bit nicer. I mean, same shape and everything, but overall just looks a little nicer. Atomizer, nicer. Fragrance itself smells a little higher quality and kind of splits the difference between Leighton and Leighton Exclusive. So I would get this one between the two, but if you're talking hype, this is the one. We haven't talked about Lattafa yet. Let's change that with Khamrah. If you're talking clones that have been hyped, you have to talk Khamrah. This is an alternative to Angel Share, and like most of the ones we're gonna talk about here today, it still holds up as one of the best Angel Share clones on the market. The quality is amazing. The fruity sweetness that's in here is top notch. It is perfect for fall and winter, big compliment puller, and it doesn't cost all that much. Also, the presentation, just about as good as Angel Share, if not better. So Khamrah, one of the most hyped, easily. Then we got one from Fragrance World. Look at this little guy right here, Starmin Nebula. This was my introduction to Fragrance World, and at the time I did not really know what to expect, because you look at the bottle, it's like a little bit Nautica Voyage in terms of the shape. Obviously you see the star on there and you're thinking, well, it looks like the Amen logo, right? Super affordable, once again, very cheap. So you get it in, give it a spray, and you're like, let's see. And then you're hit with this smell of pure malt. Just absolutely fantastic, and brought me back to when the Amen line was something that everybody was looking forward to. It's been a while, but there was a time where every year Mugler would drop a new Amen flanker, and it was hype. And some of those were just immediate staples in people's collections, like instantaneous masterpieces. Pure Malt was one of those. Pure Havane, one of the more depressing things to me is the death of the Amen line. It had some amazing fragrances. Apparently they're gonna have a new one that comes out this year, but it hasn't been announced yet. I've seen pictures, but we'll see. But anyway, yeah, Fragrance World crushed it with this one. Amazing alternative to Pure Malt, especially when you consider the price tag. Pure Malt ain't cheap. And that is one thing that Fragrance World does with some frequency, I've noticed, is cloning fragrances that have been discontinued. They do a really good job at it. Their Code Absolute alternative, that's great too. That's this one, Harmony Code Absolute. If you love Code Absolute, which I did/do, you gotta get this stuff. So Fragrance World, that one opened my eyes to the brand, and that stuff just crushes. After that, Ray and Tradition, Insurrection 2 Pure. So this is a clone of Creed's Aventus. Why include this one? Well, because this was one of the first Aventus clones that was done well for a low price point. There were Aventus clones before this one. Obviously, there have been a lot after it, but the majority of them were, and by, I mean awful. Most of them were really bad. This came out in 2013. So it was what, a year after La Yucawam. So in those early years. And that was a full 2 years before Club de Nuit Intense Man. So when this hit the market, people were hyped. Had a good looking presentation, smell was pretty good, cost was low. And at the time that came out, as far as like good Aventus alternatives, there wasn't much at all. So it was basically Aventus or that. And this gave people an alternative to that. And it still holds up. I think the presentation still looks good. I mean, it's classy looking in a way compared to a lot of clones, especially from that time period. But since we're talking Aventus, Club de Nuit Intense Man. So this came out a couple years after Insurrection, and man, that stuff just blew up. Everybody talking about Club de Nuit Intense Man. And look at all the flankers that it spawned, both Aventus style ones, limited editions, Parfum editions, all the editions, and also all the different ones, Milestone, Siage, etc., etc. Club de Nuit Intense Man, I would say without a doubt, is the biggest Aventus clone on the market still today. And it has been out for almost a decade, which is crazy to say. Still is an amazing buy. I mean, when you think about it, it's really cheap. Even had Richard Herpon smell it, professional perfumer. He made Tom Ford's Oud Wood, and he was pretty impressed by the quality that they're able to pack into this for the price point. Because we talked a lot off cam about this one also, and he was really impressed. Like, he broke down the fragrance and everything on camera, but we talked for a while. And yeah, I came away from it actually respecting Club de Nuit Intense Man more than before I went into that conversation. Let's go Rasasi again, Hawas. Hawas is a fragrance that gets compared to Invictus and Invictus Aqua. And this came out after Invictus, but before Invictus Aqua. So it would appear Rasasi was trying to make a fragrance in the style of Invictus, because some people may not recognize this or realize it at this point, especially if they just got into fragrances. But when Invictus came out, it was huge. There's a reason that there are so many fragrances on the market with that bubblegummy Invictus scent profile. And it's because when Invictus dropped, it was big. And so Hawas gave people an alternative to Invictus, but it was done with a twist, which a lot of fragrance clone houses will do that. You know, they'll clone something, but not exactly one-to-one. They'll put their own spin on it. And that's what Rasasi did. And they ended up somehow making a fragrance that also smelled a bit more like Invictus Aqua, which hadn't even come out yet. Great performance, big compliment puller. Hawas has been a staple for a lot of people for a long time. And the new Hawas Ice, really good too. Let's go Fragrance World again, Jack of Clubs. So this is an alternative to Blue Electrique, La Nuit Alone Blue Electrique. One thing I do like about this, a little gimmicky, but very cool, is it comes with a deck of cards inside the box. All of their card fragrances come with a deck of cards. So like Ace of Spades, Jack of Clubs, like they all come with a deck. This was the first Blue Electrique, alternative Blue Electrique style fragrance that really hit the market. And Blue Electrique has been something that people have really wanted, at least in the US, you know, ever since it was discontinued. Well, I say people really wanted, people in the fragrance community really wanted. I feel like if everybody in general really wanted it, it wouldn't have been discontinued, but what do I know? In the US, again, I'm talking in the US. So Jack of Clubs came out, gave people an alternative, and people bought it up. Nice, versatile fragrance, any time of year, really. Just like the fragrance that it emulates. So that's Jack of Clubs, 10 down, 5 more to go. Let's speed it up. The next one is just Tom Ford private blend fragrances in general. So this is Tobacco Touch from Maison Alhambra. This is Oud Wonder from Fragrance World. Check that out. Twins. There are a lot of private blend alternatives out there, and by and large, they've actually gotten to be extremely close. And you can tell that they're trying to just get as close as possible with these, because I mean, just look. They legitimately were like, hey, what if we make basically the Tom Ford bottle, but hear me out, the size will be in between the 50 and 100 ml size that Tom Ford does. So it's just like its own different size. Other than that, we'll pretty much just do the same names and the same style and same everything else. That'll be good, right? No problems, right? So there has been a little bit of an issue with the names, the look of some of these private blend clones. And I believe that the brands are having to change like the presentation style and the naming on some of these because they got it just a little too close. But these private blend alternatives are by and large absolutely amazing. You like oud wood, but you don't want to spend oud wood money? Oud wonder. You like tobacco vanille, but you don't want to spend that money? Tobacco touch. And so I just wanted to highlight just like the entirety of those private blend clones. After that, the Tux from Maison Alhambra. This is a clone of YSL's Tuxedo, and there was a time there where Tuxedo alternatives were the hotness. Like that's what you had to have. There was Rochas Mustache Eau de Parfum, of course, and that one really affordable nowadays, and that's not really a clone, right? But it's still in the same style as Tuxedo. Prices come down on that, thankfully. But then you had the clone houses, and they were dropping Tuxedo clones left and right. So you had the Tux from Maison Alhambra. That was probably the first one that really blew up. But then check this out. Pandora Scents, Tudor. What could that be? You got Suits from Fragrance World. And then from TJ Maxx, Taxco from Milestone. So yeah, just look. Tuxedo clones were everywhere, and by and large, they're actually extremely well done, especially when you consider the price point. So let's move these little guys. Follow that up with Tarathi Blue from Offnon. That bottle does do a wobble sometimes. Yeah, gotta be careful when you sit it down. Ooh, you see? That is a clone of Bulgari Tygar, one of a billion. Tygar is heavily cloned, and for good reason. It's a niche fragrance, but has that designer sensibility to it, meaning that it can be worn very easily, has a compliment factor to it, mass appeal, all that. The citrus really sets it off, and that one, for the price point, is just really absurdly close to Tygar. So this one, when it hit, everybody wanted it, everybody wanted to grab it up, and it makes sense why, because spring, summer, yeah, that's good. Another Lattafa, Assad, Sauvage Elixir clone. And this is another one of those times where you say, oh, that's doing really well. Fragrance World came out with their version of Assad. You have Assad, well, check this out. Just Aswad. A-S-W-A-D. I mean, nobody's gonna think those things are like similar. This is really good though. Fragrance World did crush it with this one. I'll probably do a video at some point comparing the two, but for now, let's stick with this hot. So that is a clone of Sauvage Elixir, very affordable, great performance, great quality to it, and it just absolutely blew up and still is one of the biggest clones on the market. Oh, it looks like we have reached the final fragrance here. Hunter. Intense. This one is really cheap. You can find it in the low 20s from discounters, and it's gonna give you sort of a Sauvage meets Invictus scent profile. So like Noble Red over here, you know, you've got Invictus meets Baccarat Rouge 540, Sauvage meets Invictus. I'm telling you what, it would appear the path to success is taking Invictus and mixing it with something. That's what I'm gonna say from now on. If I'm smelling a fragrance and I think it's missing a little something, I'll be like, I think Invictus here would really take it up a notch. So you're dealing with something here, once again, that has a bunch of versatility, a big compliment factor, a low price point, all those things come together and people love it. So this is one of those ones where, you know, it dropped and people were looking for an inexpensive scent that they could wear all the time that would pull compliments, and it blew up. So there we go, guys. Those are what I feel like are 15 of the biggest hype beasts in the clone world. Obviously, there are a bunch of other clones that could make it in here. This is not an exhaustive list, but these here I feel like are worth mention. Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.